Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to chat about The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. Now I am sure you have heard of this book because it is was one of the most fated books of 2019. It has had so much hype, so much expectation placed upon it, and of course it was one of the joint Man Booker Prize winners that year. And it felt like actually in the run-up, because of course the Testaments hadn't been published as the Booker Prize was being discussed, that it was felt almost like a coronation, is that there was so much expectation around the Testaments. And I found this particularly interesting because I was surprised when I heard that Margaret Atwood was revisiting Gilead, because The Handmaid's Tale is one of the great books of the 20th century. It is a book that has brought Margaret so much acclaim, so much praise. It's obviously such a part of our fabric now, part of our culture, with the TV show, with the constant representations of women who look like they come from Gilead in protests against Trump. It is a real epicenter, a real point, a mark point of everyone to reference around when we talk about women's rights. Yet Margaret, the acclaimed, the brilliant, the remarkably deft and talented Margaret Atwood, wanted to revisit Gilead, and that really interested me because I felt, surely this can only go badly. I mean, when you've got The Handmaid's Tale up here, what did Margaret want to bring out in a sequel or another book about Gilead that she felt she hadn't covered in The Handmaid's Tale? So one, not only am I a massive Margaret Atwood fan, so I wanted to read this, but two, I was really curious why she wanted to do that. And so we have The Testaments. Now, the first thing is, I know when everyone saw the book when it came out, it looked big. I flew through this. I mean, I could not put this book down. Whereas A Handmaid's Tale was a really intimate political drama that examined the political through the personal, that created this world of Gilead, but we really only focused down on one character and her struggle, of course. The Testaments is a thriller. I mean, I powered through this novel. Where we are is we are back in Gilead sometime later after the events of The Handmaid's Tale, and we are following three characters. One, Aunt Lydia. She is one of the main colluders of women with the patriarchal society that's been created. She is very much one of the organisers of the women, and I understand she's quite a big character in the television series, which I haven't seen. Again, I was slightly frightened to watch the TV series because I loved the book so much. So we follow Aunt Lydia in Gilead, and then two young girls, one being brought up in Gilead, being schooled, being prepared for her role, however she is assigned within Gilead, and a girl from outside Gilead in the States whose family and friends are part of the resistance trying to take down Gilead from without, working the refugee trails and infiltrating people that could bring down the system from within. So we follow these three characters, different generations, different experiences, someone who's had no experience of Gilead, another who has had every element of experience that she can see from the darkest side of it. And we follow these three female characters as their stories and their paths very quickly converge into a very explosive finale. I mean, it's a thriller. Like I said, I was just pacing through the pages. So it's fantastic. It is thrilling. It is a book about collusion. It is a book about resistance. And that is what Margaret Atwood, I feel, was doing when she revisited Gilead. In The Handmaid's Tale, it's very much about oppression and survival and what patriarchy, what men are prepared to do to women in the most extreme circumstances. This is a book how women will collude in that. It's a book about how not every woman is a natural resistor to it, how sometimes in dictatorial societies it pays to collude. What is the price of justice? What is the price of freedom? Who will you betray to survive? What costs survival? If you betray so many others, how does that, take hold in yourself? How does that affect your psyche? And then also, it's looking at power structures themselves. So women are, of course, utterly powerless in Gilead, and yet there are power structures within women. There are those who are at the top of the hierarchy, and there are those who are at the bottom of the lower level stratas. And it's very interesting that even in an oppressed group, Margaret Atwood was really interested in looking at how we define power structures even when we have no power, how there's always haves and have-nots, how there's always infighting, and she really wanted to examine what it took to resist, what that looks like from the ugly side, such as collusion, from the good side, as fighting for justice. And she does that brilliantly. The Testaments is fantastic. There are moments, it is a drama, there are moments of hilarity, there are moments of utter horror. There is one particular scene that I feel is almost etched on the back of my eyeballs. It is so awful. But that's, if you know Margaret Atwood's wider or the other books she's written, she does have a tendency. She has written in horror, she has written in Gothic, she has written in Shakespearean adaptations. You know, she obviously is capable and does so much. But The Testaments is fantastic. It is a book of our time, obviously. That is the point of why Margaret Atwood was writing this. This is almost an implicit call to action, like, don't collude in what's going on, speak up, but acknowledging that there are different journeys to be made in that resistance. This is a fantastic book. I completely recommend it. Even if you struggled with The Handmaid's Tale, you liked the idea but weren't sure on the pacing, this is pacey, this is exciting. It's a very contemporary written novel that really brings the reader on. I absolutely loved it. Margaret Atwood's The Testaments.